Hello and welcome to Audionautic Deep Space Network, episode 31. Wow, that's crazy. In the 30s. I missed you last week, Eon Lake. I'm glad you're back. But anyways, Audionautic Deep Space Network is our weekly live stream where we talk about music production, music technology. And today we'll be talking about a rise in home vinyl production. Kind of crazy. Apple Music celebrating, I put that in quotes, 100 million songs. And then we'll talk a little bit about how we and everyone in the chat keeps things fresh when in the studio. With me today, unfortunately, is not Curtis. He's got some other stuff to attend to, some real life stuff. But Eon Lake is back. How are you, my friend?
I'm a bit secondhand, but I'm glad to be back, mate.
Happy to have you here, man.
It's a shame to miss Josh, but there you go, yeah.
I know we haven't been at our full potential in like a couple weeks.
Yeah,
you were gone last week, and then he's not here this week, but it's all right. We've got some awesome stuff to talk about and all that.
Yeah,
but
show goes on regardless.
Yeah. Everybody in the chat, how are you doing? If you want to help, we're live, so share it, like it, retweet it, anything like that. It all helps. But what have you been up to, Eon Lake? It's been a minute.
Well, I've been minging mostly, being really ill.
Oh.
But no, I mean, I've been trying to do bits and bobs in between when I've not been in bed moaning. And yeah, I'm still writing. Not getting as much done as I'd hoped, to be honest, because obviously I've not been working. It's not.
Well, you gotta take it easy. Give yourself a break.
Yeah.
You're sick, you know. Get better, then work.
Music, but no, it really wasn't happening. There wasn't much inspiration, and there wasn't much desire to do anything except moan a lot. But I have been doing some weird stuff with using the LFO plugins in Ableton to do kind of modular things in the DAW instead. So just getting random LFO waveforms and applying them to synth parameters and stuff, just to make things sound weird in a way that, you know, it's the kind of thing that you would do in a modular rack, but not so much in the DAW. But these things are really sort of coming together these days.
Yeah.
Starting to get a lot of that functionality coming over. So it's nice to mess around with stuff and try and do things in a different way.
Yeah,
kind
definitely.
of leads into what we're going to talk about later on about.
I know. I was like, don't go too far into that. That's for later. That's for later.
Yeah. And that, and thinking about future projects and maybe doing some alternative styles, shall we say, some stuff that I've not done before.
Like dubstep?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That American like wobble dubstep with just screeching. Yeah. Well, that's something that Curtis has been listening to, like Organica or something. We talked about that in Binary Stars, where it was like it was trippy. They take these like, you know, folk samples of banjos and stuff, and then you get these like basses just like thrown in your face.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking when Eat Static did some weird calypso, sort of alien calypso stuff. It was very, very weird indeed.
Yeah.
Original.
Yeah, and it just gets you out of your usual, right? I mean, whatever you're making, if you're making something new.
Exactly. I don't know what's worse. I've been trying to keep things. I try and shake things up so I don't go stagnant. But there've been a couple of times recently where I've kind of forgotten how I do what I do, and then it's come back
every day, man.
I feel like I've sort of mixed it up so much that I almost sort of like lost me in it a little bit and had to sort of remember what that was about. But, yeah, it's like riding a bike. It comes back to you.
Yeah.
So what about you, man? What have you been up to with your health and you're not having COVID?
Well, yeah, I haven't had COVID, so I've been all right. I was in Vegas over the weekend.
Oh, wow.
So that was cool. I'm not the biggest fan of Vegas, but it was just nice to get away, take a step back from the studio and all that. And then I came back just like, I'm ready to produce. Like, I need to just make music. And I'm finally, after 2 years being here, designing and planning like the studio that I want to have in here. Because I kind of just half-assedly threw everything in here and was like, here's a desk, just put every synth on here. Nothing's ever plugged in. So I have to go through the hurdle of overcoming my laziness to set anything up when I want to play. Like if I want to play the Prophet.
As well, haven't you?
What's that?
You've moved things around a few times and tried different.
I have. And I had a setup that was kind of cool, but it was like strictly DAW-less. And then when I wanted to do computer stuff, there was no connection to any of that. And so to rewire everything was just a hassle. And then like my keyboard sits over there, but my desk is too small to have anything other than the keyboard or like a keyboard and an SP or anything like a typing keyboard. So I'm like redoing this whole thing. I'm going to get rid of all the desks, get one really long adjustable desk that goes from seated to standing. And then I'm going to get a synth stand over here that I can put all my synths, and then with a MIDI hub of everything connected to the computer. I'm gonna get a mixer, like a cheap Behringer one or something.
Yeah.
And then I want to have like the SP set up to work and the circuit to work alone together as like a DAW setup, where I could still quickly transfer the MIDI connections to other synths, but also have them going into a mixer. So if I want to use them, you know, with the computer or something. So kind of like a hybrid setup that I can, whenever I need to isolate something, I can easily. So that's the biggest thing. And then I'm finally finishing and filming that live set that I'm doing for the new album. I'm going to pre-record that part because I want to do multiple camera angles. So, but then I'm going to like before and after, because I'm going to do it as a Bandcamp live thing. So before and after, I'm going to like come on and talk or whatever if there's people in the chat and stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much where I've been at.
That sounds like enough to keep you busy.
It was, yeah, it was. Not much sleep over the weekend.
The live set thing, it was fun when you started it out. Did it stay fun?
You know, kind of, yeah. Kind of, yeah, because what I really enjoy about it is that I did this weird mix of about 3 different types of live performance. So there's some where I'm triggering single pads of sounds like a chord per synth. I took a sample and made a chord per pad. And so I hit that, and then I have 2 channels, 2 pads that are the isolated drums of the full song and the isolated like melody and stuff. And so it's a mix of like live performance, DJing, and then having this backing track. Then I have some where it's like the circuit doing most of it, and I'm just hitting stems or samples on the SP. And with those, I was able to create almost remixes of the songs where it goes into these like drastic changes. And so that was really fun to do this really easy reimagining of all these different things. So it did kind of keep it fresh in that way, and I enjoyed it. But yeah, I mean, making mistakes and like having to restart the full set because I'm a perfectionist, it was like, that wasn't fun. But it is fun, and I like the portability. It's literally just the SP and the circuit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, when bands go on tour, they do a lot of rehearsals beforehand.
Yeah.
It's because you can screw up, right? I mean,
yeah. And I mean, I'm going to pre-record it. I'm going to have several cameras on it and all that, but I'm not going to do any cuts. Like, whatever the best performance that I film is, that's the one I'm going to use. So it is going to be live in that sense. There will be mistakes, but that's the fun in it.
and do you know what? The one thing I forgot to mention that I've been doing while I've been away from you is I've been listening to the excellent Fragments 2 by Curtis.
Yes. Nice pitch. I like it.
If you're drifting in some semi-asleep, semi-awake haze, it's absolutely perfect music. I had some quite weird experiences being really ill and listening to that. It's very good therapy anyway.
Yeah. No, I remember when I was listening to those when I was mastering them, I was like, this is really cool. This is so different from his usual. You know, I wasn't expecting that sound. And
proper ambient bangers.
Yeah, he called it hardcore ambient. His first foray into hardcore ambient. And I was listening. I was like, yep, that's hardcore ambient. But everybody in the chat, what have you been up to? How has your week been going? What are you looking forward to musically this week? You working on anything new? I should also add that this show is brought to you by our patrons. You can head over to patreon.com/audionautic. We have additional content. There's a whole podcast. We're working on this really crazy collab idea in a podcast format, and then early access to videos and some other stuff. We got a Twitter group where we talk about things and you can ask us questions. So if you want to help support us in what we do, head over there. And in the chat, one of our patrons, Hydrofighter, is over there. He says, hey guys, how are you, Hydrofighter? What have you been up to? What are you working on musically this week? That's what I want to know this week. Yeah. But should we get into some of this crazy gear?
Crazy gear.
Yeah, crazy gear. All right. So
I want to hear about. But
so with Josh not being here, I'm testing out a new method of showing the stuff we're talking about, let's say. So if there's any issues or anything, let me know in the chat. But with that, let's get to this first one. It is Teenage Engineering, which, as you may know from the pocket operator I got, and if you like, what is it, the OP1? Right? Teenage Engineering makes the OP1?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so you probably are familiar with them. They just announced a new pocket operator, the PO80. And this thing is a record factory. You can make your own, as they call it, lo-fi vinyl. So, and I should mention the price is only $149. It's
well, you have me sold at lo-fi vinyl.
yeah, it's so they say PO80 Record Factory. By the way, hopefully everyone is seeing. It looks like it from my Streamlabs is seeing the what I'm sharing. But make your own vinyl records. PO80 Record Factory.
I'll say that, but yeah.
Well, you probably won't because I'm not sharing it to the Google chat. But if you head to the YouTube, you'll see it.
Okay.
Okay, so make your own vinyl records. PO80 Record Factory is a compact and portable record cutter. And just to show it again, it's this little guy. Look at it. It's so cute.
Bye.
They say engrave and playback 5-inch discs with ultra analog lo-fi sound. Simply plug in any audio device to the 3.5 millimeter audio input and cut your own record in an instant. Yep, it's really that simple. And I think they show... Let me scroll.
Center of any professional studio.
Look at this little box. Like, that's awesome. I think they've got one of the, I think it's the disco going, or the factory pocket operator going into it, and they're making a vinyl. So here, just a couple things. If you want a bag for it, it's $60. And then I thought this was important to discuss. The 10 blank 5-inch records are $20. So like $2 of vinyl, I think, if I'm not a mathematician, but if I'm doing math right. Yeah, I don't know how much size they fit, like how much you can get in there. Yeah. But it's just really cool. I mean, me personally, I was thinking of it as, I've been trying to look at ways of making like something special, like a release special. Like I've got that special edition for Radiant Visage with postcards and all that stuff. And it's like, this is the ultimate special release, right? It's like a one-off, if you want it to be, specifically on this one vinyl that you could send to someone. I just thought that makes it really unique and special. What about you? What do you think?
It looks like fun. I wonder.
That's the quote they should put on the headline. It looks like fun.
If you lived with it, I wonder how much you'd actually use it, and I wonder what it sounds like. I mean, how crap is it? Does it sound good crap or just crap? What
did they call it? Ultra analog lo-fi? I mean, that's gotta be pretty gritty. And if you're recording a pocket operator into it, you're going beyond ultra lo-fi. That's like I don't know, a whole nother plane of existence lo-fi.
Sure. I mean, you're scraping it into plastic, carving it into plastic. I mean, apart from chipping it out of stone, I don't know. Can you go any more analog than that?
Yeah, I mean, but that, I guess, is the novelty and the like fun factor, or the whole point of it is that it's this very lo-fi, very unique, one-off type creation.
And then it also makes me think, are they bringing out a 2-deck version with a mixer?
Yeah. Well, I think, let me go back to it. They have, oh no, it's a cutting head. I thought it was a volume, like mixing knob. I was like, they've got a mixing knob, but I guess not.
If you can scratch on it.
Really quick in the chat, Hydrofighter said what he's been up to. He's been configuring MIDI controllers, trying to get my velocity control set so they're not all over the place. Interesting. Mm-hmm. When you say velocity controls, is that like per synth note, or what do you mean by velocity? Let's put it that way. But yeah, what about you guys in the chat? What do you think about this little PO80 vinyl factory?
Your own lathe cuts.
I mean, $150 and you can make your own vinyl. Just from what, of course, the quality is probably terrible, as we talked about, or I should say ultra analog lo-fi. But we were talking about a couple episodes ago how hard it is to make vinyls, and of course that's proper vinyl and all of that. But I mean, you look at this, it's like, I don't know if you'd call it the democratization of vinyl production, but like for $150 you could start cranking out your own vinyls.
Yeah, I mean, you know how some people specialize in old things and curious things from the year, and some of them being children's toys and recording sound to them.
Yeah.
Work. I mean, you can get in on the ground floor with this one. You don't have to wait 20 years.
Yeah, there you go. but yeah, that's I think all we got for that one. Do you have anything else you want to add about the PO80?
No, I am gonna find a way of hearing people using it and so on. I'll be really interested to see the first sort of YouTube video.
That's what I want to hear. What does it sound like? Ultra analog lo-fi could mean myriad of things, and I have a feeling I know what that means, but maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised.
I'll be interested to see what people make of it as well, and what they choose to do with it.
Yeah, and I want to know the duration you can fit on it.
Yeah.
Is it a minute? Is it 2 minutes? Is it 5 minutes? I don't know. And maybe they say, but I didn't see it. Hydro Fighter in the chat says velocity sensitivity. Some of my plugins are very sensitive, so I'm trying to make it so the note level is consistent when triggering from the controllers. Oh, I got you. Yeah, okay. I know the SP, as I always bring it up, has a fixed velocity setting that you can put on, and I love that. And then they also have like a 16 velocity. Say again, Ian Lake? Sorry, I was talking over you.
It's useful for some things, isn't it? And then you can use the 16 pads for your different levels of velocity as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's mosey on over to the next topic, which is I put this in quotes because I don't know how to take this, but Apple is quote celebrating 100 million songs on Apple Music, and there's a little article. They talk about, what did they say? What's in a number? So they talk about how much music has been going up, and they say back in the 1960s, only 5,000 new albums were released each year. Today, anywhere in the world in 167 countries and regions on Apple Music, any artist of any description can write and record a song and release it globally. Every day, over 20,000 singers and songwriters are delivering new songs to Apple Music. Songs that make our catalog even better than it was the day before. So, I just wanted to get your take and the chat's take on 100 million songs on Apple Music.
Wow. I suppose, if it's a digital storefront, having a lot of content is a good thing, right?
To a degree, yes.
Streaming platform. I mean, they talk Apple Music kind of covers what you can buy and what you can stream.
I think it's still somewhat separated between iTunes and Apple Music, but I don't use it. As an Apple user, I don't use it. So anybody in the chat that uses it, or like if you do use Apple Music, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought it's still kind of separated between iTunes for purchases and Apple Music for streaming.
Yeah, you're right. It is. I just wonder what they're counting. I think they are just counting Apple Music and what's available on there for streaming.
Yeah.
It's useful if you use Echo Dots and things like that, because stuff you couldn't get otherwise you can get if you've got an Apple Music subscription.
Yeah, I mean, that's the double-edged sword of streaming, right? And I always talk about that, but it's like I use streaming because I can discover new music every day, and in some small way it supports the artist. I mean, not the best way, but if I tried to buy every song I stream and like discover and stuff, it'd be a crazy amount of money that I just don't have, so I can at least support someone in a small degree. And that's great, but then the other side of it is oversaturation. Thousands of songs added every day, so it's just flooded. You're at the top 1 minute and you're just gone the next. But that happens on Bandcamp too. I mean, to be fair. But yeah, it's kind of the double-edged sword. I appreciate the fact that much music can exist and be out, and there's a place for it if you want to find it.
Depends what you're using it for. I mean, for me, to a certain extent, it's kind of like the modern equivalent of going to a record store.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
To see if you want to buy it.
Yeah.
And the algorithms are useful. The algorithms are like the store owner who can tell you about other stuff that's similar to things you like and so on. I mean, I am in no way suggesting that it's a comparable experience. I would rather go to a shop and talk to somebody about music because I'm a human being and I like that kind of thing. But it's analogous, and it serves a similar purpose for me. I've found a lot of other artists through artists that I like. It's put me in touch with them. I've then gone on and bought stuff, the stuff I really like, and it puts me in touch with new things all the time, and you can, if somebody's talking about something, you can just listen to something, hear what the vibe's about, and something that you like, then you can go and buy it, and I tend to do it on Bandcamp if I can. If they're not on there, then I suppose any sale is a sale, right? And
there's always iTunes, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the only place they got their music, then fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's kind of useful. I mean, it's easy to brag about numbers, but I mean, you and I, as independent musicians, we know some of the stuff that's going to those stores, and some of it is terrible.
But some of it's great.
Some of it's amazing. There's a
Yeah.
lot of amazing music
Yeah.
out there. I mean, there would
Yeah.
have to be with those kind of numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, like you're saying. I guess its value is all about its value to you and how you use it.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. See, this is why I missed having you. You put things so succinctly. It just, that's just a quick
After
way.
I've talked about it for 5 minutes.
Well, yeah, but we got there in the end. You got it succinct at the end. There's a bit of a long, drawn-out discussion, but, we got there. Chat, what do you guys think about this? Do you think it's a good thing celebrating 100 million songs? The ability that any artist, as Apple put it to their credit, can just put it up and their music is out there and potential to get heard by millions or billions, I don't know how many users of people. I think that's pretty cool. But why don't we move to some gear? A brighter note.
Yeah, it's been too long since we talked.
I know,
about
I've been
gear.
itching for some new gear, right? And I'm sure you probably haven't bought gear in a week or two, so you're like, where can I spend my money?
I bought a new cable. That's about it.
There you go. Yeah. So I saw this, I think, on Reddit. It might have been Syntopia, I can't remember, but it's a new, I think they call it an infinite bass engine. Yeah, infinite bass engine. It's the Monolith by Artistry Audio, and if you want to grab it, it's normally $150. It's on sale right now for $100. It's contact player, and I don't know what NKS is, but NKS ready. This thing is pretty crazy. They're making it sound like it's strictly like a bass machine. Let's get a little test of it. Listen to that thing. I mean, it's just massive bass sounds. Howard, I'm not sure if you could hear it, but
I can't hear it now, but
the chat will probably hear it.
Naming, sure.
The chat will hear it when it comes on it, but it's just these massive, really low-end bass sounds.
Output have got something like that as well, but I think if I could hear it, would sound quite similar.
Yeah, they say Monolith is an infinite bass engine ready to propel your music to stratospheric heights. Utilize hundreds of ground-shaking presets to quickly cut through your mix or dive deep into the parameters to sculpt bass tones that are all your own. Use any of the 85 groups of high-definition basses, subs, orchestral, and synth samples, or import your own samples. That's pretty cool for infinite inspiration. So, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot you can do with this thing. Massive sounds from it. Are you looking for anything that's like a bass machine?
Not really.
No?
I'm looking around me and seeing a lot of Moog hardware and thinking, I'm all right for low end at the moment.
Okay, but that is a strict like subtractive or analog synthesizer.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
This
that's
thing
true.
It has sample functionality. You can throw in all the different presets they have, make all these crazy sounds. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of the digital space, that you can do a bit more than what you could with that. Now, of course, you could sample your Moog into like a granular synth or something on your computer.
Oh, I did.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I recorded a wavetable off it. It sounded monster because I got 8 of them playing back.
Nice. But I just thought it was really cool. I always feel like bass is the thing I do like the lowest amount of effort for. Like I'll either record a bass, which there you go, or I have like there's an FM bass sound I really like that I made that I use on almost anything. It just kind of changes the distortion and filters and stuff. But that's kind of something that I want to explore soon, is more wide-ranging bass sounds. And if you listen to the demos, I mean, they do some pretty crazy sounds from it.
Yeah, these products do take you to different spaces that I think really you need to be pretty good with sound design to be able to get to those places yourself.
Yeah.
And a certain amount of layering is what makes the sound themselves. So it will definitely give you a bit more variety, I think.
Yeah.
And I did think about it when Output put their monster bass plugin out. I thought, ooh, it is tempting, and I think this one would probably do the same thing. It's a contact plugin, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it said contact player and NKS, whatever that is.
Complete, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's complete. So presumably the free player will play it.
Yeah, I think that's the contact player is the free one.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. So you think you might grab it? I'm thinking about grabbing it.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm interested in getting some more variety. Put it that way, because I can make the room shake, no problem.
That's the Moog. Yeah, you can do that fine. Which Moogs do you have? Which synths of there?
I got the Sub 37.
Nice.
But I've also got the Behringer Model D, which is very fat. Having said that, I mean, with the MS-20 and the K2, because they're essentially the same sound, if you've got one filter with a resonance on and you put it in a low register, you'll boost the bass tones and use the other filter as a high pass cutoff, a low pass cutoff up in the high register, you can get some really strangled tones out of them. And it's a dirty sound as well. So they're pretty good for bass too, in a different way. It sounds, the Moog's very round and soft and fat.
Yeah.
Whereas the MS-20 is a lot harsher, but it's got a lot of low end as well.
Yeah. You got so many cool synths. I just want to go to your studio.
I just do the same thing with them all the time.
It doesn't matter.
Oscillators beating against each other, so it sounds a bit distorted. And go, yeah, that's the one.
Good enough. Yeah. Well, we've been on and on about gear, but you know what we haven't talked about in a while is gold gear. Yeah.
I mean, where's it been?
Well, that's Josh and you're failing. That's your job, and you failed.
So, what people are going to do with their Spotify page?
So I picked up the pace and I took it upon myself to find some gold for us, and I think I found something that is pretty interesting. So Howard, you'll want to probably check in our ADSN topics.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna play this. This company put out Isovox put out a short, and there's also you can buy this. Isopop 24K Gold.
You have a golden voice. And you have the finest gear in your studio. Well, you don't have this. Isopop 24 karat gold. The golden pop filter, or the golden voice.
Oh, Isovox is that?
Be one of the lucky few in the world to own this unique limited edition. Isopop 24 karat gold.
Look
And
at that.
that can be yours for just $1,000.
$1,000 pop shield.
Yeah.
It is a pop shield, right?
Yeah, and it has interchangeable. They have a neutral one. Be careful, man. You're recovering from COVID. You gotta be careful. They've got a neutral filter and then a de-esser filter. So I mean, you get your money's worth
you
for
get
$1,000. I just love how like formal the video is, and you need gold for a gold voice.
Yeah, I like the way it's got a lovely case with nice little catches on it. It's the sort of thing you have to take out with gloves, or you get the butler to do it.
Yeah. Please, time for my gold Isopop.
Yes. Jeeves.
Jeeves.
Yeah. My gold pop shield.
Yeah. Hydro Fighter shares in our
Hydro
sentiments.
Fighter says it's pimp.
Yeah, I was going to say
that
he shares
would
in our sentiments.
need some soul glow in his hair to sing into that thing.
Shady Rich says you'd need a grill. Yeah, I mean, that would be your natural de-esser to have a grill on. You don't even need the other, they should have provided a grill with those two pop filters.
You did think that was a matching set, really.
Maybe that's like an extra, the bonus, like the $200 extra special edition is a gold grill.
Yeah, I think there's an upgrade. Upgrade option there.
I'm sure. But yeah, that can be yours for $1,000. I mean, to me, that sounds like a deal. I remember we talked about like a $35,000 gold vinyl player. I mean, just $1,000.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that cartridge was. There was that cartridge that had a diamond on it that we got.
That was the one I'm talking about. Yeah, that was the one.
Get it with the change out of 10 grand for that,
Yeah. But I mean, you deserve the best for your vocal performances, So get gold.
Be a star.
Yeah, I think that's
state of mind, apart from anything else, isn't it?
Yeah, I bet that's the next piece of gear we're gonna see next week when you're on. You're gonna have a gold pop filter.
Right here.
Yeah. And your butler will come out from behind you to give it to you at the start of the episode.
White gloves.
Yeah, there you go.
So you pop show.
Yeah, so that's just a bit of gold. I thought we could all use a little gold in our lives. It's been a couple weeks, so
Definitely.
if you, dear listener, have any gold pieces of gear you want us to talk about, please let us know over in the chat, in the comments, or over on our Twitter. We will be happy to oblige to discuss it. Moving on to something much more serious and very awesome that I guess a lot of users of these products have been asking for a while. I'm sure you, Eon Lake, can attest to, is song mode from Elektron on the Digitact. What is it? Digitone and the Syntact. I'm not super familiar with their whole product line, but I think it's just those three.
I thought it was the what's the sampler one? I think it might be Octatrack as well. Yeah.
Okay, I thought Octatrack kind of had it already, but anyways, they added song mode. So we've got Ricky Tinez here, who may be working for Elektron now. That I know he works at Novation, I think, but here he is talking about song mode. So I'll just play a little bit.
And today I wanted to show you how you can save your pattern chains on Syntact using song mode. First, let's activate song mode. Pressing or holding down the pattern menu button brings us to our song mode options. To edit our song, we'll have to first turn on song mode, and we do this by pressing yes. Now we'll press the right arrow to edit our song. With an empty song with no rows in it, we can press yes to create rows from a chain. If you already have a pattern chain that you like, you can go ahead and select from current chain. Or we can do this by my favorite way, which is from a new chain. We'll hit yes, and now all we need to do is select which patterns and how many times they play, and it'll automatically create a ton of rows for us. So we can say play 1 twice, then 2 and 3. Maybe we'll play 4 times, 5, 6, 5, 6. Press yes, and bam, we have all our patterns populated in this song.
So that's pretty cool. Quick way to do it.
Yeah.
That I hadn't watched the full method of doing it. That reminds me of how the pocket operators work. As soon as you have the patterns you want, you hold the pattern button and you select whichever ones, however many times, and it'll just keep going through that. So if you select 1 3 times, then 2, and then 5, and then 7, then it'll go through that 1 3 times 2, 5, 7, 1 3. Like, it just keeps going through that. So pretty cool. What do you think? Is this something that is like a game changer for you as a Elektron user?
For me, I like the fact that you can name sections. You can do BPM changes, I think, in it, can't you?
I would think so, yeah. I mean, you can do per parameter, right, with the way their step sequencer works. So
it just makes it's changed my thinking a little bit. I mean, it's so much easier than pattern changing. It does look like a good implementation of it. I think it's huge, really, as far as a change. I think it makes a good product set that much more useful and in the real world. I'm pretty excited about it, and I don't say that normally. I'm thinking about live work and so on, and I'll be building a set soon. And my approach had been, I want the computer to do all the sequencing, all the MIDI, but not the audio, and have hardware do the audio, mainly samplers, but maybe the odd synth voice as well. And this is actually making me think, well, could I ditch the computer really? Because, you've got 8 channels of audio plus 8 channels of MIDI on a Digitact.
Yeah.
Plus,
how many notes per MIDI track? Is it 4? The polyphony?
Polyphony. Yeah, I think
I know the Syntact, I think, is 4-note polyphony per MIDI.
Yeah, I think it is. That's a good point, actually. I think I might still fall back to the laptop's going to do the MIDI stuff.
But if you're triggering samplers, you don't really need polyphony necessarily, because you could have one sample track playing a large amount of stuff. Yeah. I'm thinking that, the 404 and the black box together can do a lot. All the big samples on the black box, and the 404 can do all the busy work and all the small stuff and a load of effects and whatnot. So I'm just thinking, it just gives you a lot more options. That little box you've got in front of you suddenly does a lot more. And I love it when people do this stuff. Yeah. When an update comes up that really. And how old is the Digitact? It's got to be 7 years, something like that. Yeah, and they added that overbridge. Now they add song mode. I mean, I know they also have a vested interest because the Syntact is new. I'm sorry, say again.
My
Ian Lake?
Overbridge is a bit. I'm getting a bit of lag on it. I'm finding
Really?
it hard to keep it really locked with other beats if I'm using other beats,
Okay.
especially with the 404 and the Digitact together.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've got 8 channels of audio running over my USB cable. Nothing else is plugged in. It's not connected to my mixer or anything. It's really bloody useful when it works.
It's pretty cool. I mean, just the concept of it and the fact that they've executed it to a degree even is just incredible. To have 8 channels of audio through USB is just mind-blowing. So I hope to see that more because that's awesome. I mean, just imagine all the possibilities. You're not stuck to a stereo mix from that anymore. Now you have 8 channels or whatever. That's awesome.
It makes me wonder what you can do with parameter locking on MIDI channels.
Yeah.
Because I love that. I mean, I've had whole songs come out of parameter locking on this, taking piano samples and mangling them, just sequencing a beat.
Yeah.
And then changing pitches and the start points and everything.
Yeah.
I love doing stuff like that. So yeah, it's just, I'm very happy about it. I love it when people open up bits of kit for you like that and just make it that much more usable. It's like the last SB404 update.
Yeah, which we were talking about before, because I finally watched a video about what it does. And I was like, man, I got to stop sleeping on this. But I have to finish this live set because I don't want anything to get corrupted on the off chance when updating. But man, that step sequencer looks incredible. I can't wait to get that update. And the new form of chromatic, what is it, legato or whatever, that's crazy. Yeah. So maybe once I update it, I might maybe on my channel do a run through of some of the new stuff that I find useful or something, or we can do it on Audionautic if anybody wants to see some cool stuff you can do with the SP. I know I sing its praises often enough, but it is a very cool piece of gear. Do you want to go into the round robin, or do you have anything else you want to talk about? You're the Elektron user, so we'll move over when you're ready.
No, I think we're good. I mean, you've either got one of these and you're going to love the fact that they've done it, or
you want one.
I don't know. I think there might be a few people that go, "Oh, I really want one of those," and then they do this and you go, "No, I really want one of those." It might tip them over the edge.
That's me.
But I don't. Second-hand market, I didn't buy mine new. It's.
Oh, you bought yours used.
Yeah.
Because I was looking on Reverb because I was like, fuck that. Even before that came out, I was like, I really want one. I can't get one right now. That's why I got the pocket operator.
But just half my gear came off eBay.
Really. Interesting. Okay. Anybody in the chat ever buy anything off of eBay, gear-wise? Or Reverb? Any of those Sweetwater, even if they have used? I think they started a used thing. Just curious to hear. Yeah. But, so the round robin, did you put this in or did Curtis?
Well, it was Curtis.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I didn't want to give him credit if you did it. But, so the round robin, he put new scenes, mixing things up in the studio. What are some ways to keep songwriting fresh? And I think this is relevant at the moment for both of us, because from us discussing at the beginning what we're up to, we're both kind of in the midst of a refresh, so to speak, to keep things fresh in the studio. So before we get into it, everyone in the chat, what are some ways you try to keep things fresh in the studio? And if you want to wait till we discuss some of ours to get ideas or anything, do you try to change things up in the studio? Or do you like it to be kind of locked in and consistent every time so that you can just come in and work? Because I get that too. But anyways, let's start with you, Ian. Like, how are you keeping things fresh in the studio?
Well, that's a good question because I've been struggling with it a bit, really.
Oh, okay.
Lately. And I get some people, I think, really benefit from the same workflow and not, they almost, it's almost like they can't do anything if they don't follow their ritual. And I'm not like that. I do need to try and keep things different. And I do that in a number of different ways. One thing I've been doing, when I think of it, because I've just proven that I do actually listen to this show when I'm not on it. It's weird. I do what Curtis does. He's been doing recently. So one of the things I've been doing, whenever I do a session, I always bounce out a rough mix, always. And I attach it to a note-keeping app that I have and make notes on it out of the studio. So when I come back in, I know what I'm doing next.
Yeah.
And one thing I've been doing is taking my laptop with a light pad block plugged into it and dropping the rough mix into Ableton and then just jamming over the top of it on a different laptop out of the studio in a completely different environment. So he was talking on the.
When you say jamming, do you mean that you've got like a little, like the sequencer thing? Yeah.
To enter the note information, because
Gotcha.
it's an MPE controller and
Yeah.
small and handy. And just sit there with two devices and just jam stuff on top of it on a different machine with different plugins on it and so on.
Yeah.
Just as a kind of a in a different context,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Sometimes I also, because I always make a note of what key a song's in and the BPM, so I will also use things like the OPZ and the OP1, and I'll make sure I'm in the same BPM, same key, and just jam. And if there's anything I particularly like, I'll bounce it out onto a shared drive and then pull it into Ableton when I'm in the studio.
Yeah.
So one thing I've been doing is location-based and doing things out of the studio a bit, just trying to break the monotony. Not that there's a lot of them. I don't get to work that as often as I'd like as it is. And then apart from that, it's my usual thing of trying to write songs differently. So I don't know how you write normally. Sometimes I start with a beat, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I start with an arpeggio or a lead line or something.
I'm the same. You should just assume whatever you do, I do, because I swear we always do the same things.
Yeah. So I try and mix it up so that I'm not coming at it from the same angle each time.
Yeah.
And then there's the whiteboard where all my ideas are. The thing I've thought of trying. And the one I spoke about is up there at the moment. Moog wavetables, because there's a wavetable synth in the modular. So I just took a cable out of that into there, play a note in, and listen back to 8 of them.
Just make this massive sound. Yeah, that's awesome.
And it was huge. It was quite monstrous.
I can imagine.
On that spherical wavetable navigator for MS Make, you can add metalizer effects to it, a low pass filter, a bunch of other effects and so on, and store it as part of the waveform, part of the wavetable, so that you can scan through it.
Yeah.
And it was monstrous, and I ended up doing a really chilled ambient track with it. Strangely.
Okay. You put like a filter on it to cut some of that fat sound
off? Yeah, and sort of modulate the position in the wavetable.
Oh, I got you, yeah.
Scanning slowly through it, and it's changing a bit. And it was like, ooh, throw me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Maybe a deep state?
I mean, that and collaborations are, I guess, a good way when you really do get stuck.
Yeah.
I think to get inspiration, other people. I think this is something that bands, where there are 2 or more members, kindly spoken, please tell me if I'm wrong here, where you have less of a problem because, there's 2 of you. You can bounce ideas off. If one of you gets stuck, the other one might have an idea and so on, And for people like us, obviously, we can do it long distance, exchanging stems and things like that. It's another way of digging yourself out of a rut. And then I suppose another fun one is maybe just remix. Treat a song like a remix of a song you haven't actually finished yet.
You've talked about that in one of our old Lightspeeds, I believe.
Yeah, and pretend someone else wrote what you're listening to.
Yeah.
Do a remix of it.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. I know, just having that mental separation makes a big difference.
Yeah, sometimes it just seems to be about tricking the monkey brain
as Curtis
doing
would say.
Something. Yeah, I mean, it's like that thing where I'm not going to record it. I'm just going to do sound design, and then you write a song.
Well, that kind of perfectly segues into what I was going to say, because that's something that I've been trying to do at the moment. I lost my little spot on my little one sheet, but I've been doing a couple things to kind of break out of the monotony, so to speak. And the biggest thing is I'm planning, as I've discussed, this whole conceptual project for 2023, and one of the things I want to do, because I did it for a few of those things I was hired for the comic that I did the composition, then I was supposed to be designing soundtrack for something, and it sounds like it fell through, but I made like a project in Logic that was just a sound template and idea spot, and so I just designed a ton of different sounds. I'd make like 4 or 5 drum tracks, 4 or 5 pads, 4 or 5 leads, and a couple basses. And I'd also have audio tracks if I needed some stuff. And then I'd just throw like Diva on, make up sound, and then add a bunch of effects. And then I'd try to build multiple tracks from this like skeleton or template, so to speak. And so every sound in one specific project has a very similar vibe. But of course you tweak it as you go, and you make new pads and patches and stuff like that. But it was a way to kind of like create a sound world for a specific, like, I'm trying to do kind of like Curtis, how he has these concepts and multimedia almost, like that's what I'm going more towards. And so I want each release to be very thematic. And so the best way to do that, in my opinion, was to have unifying themes. And so that's kind of the point of that. And then the other thing that has been really helpful right now, as I've been saying, I haven't really been happy with just having stuff laying about. Like I can't do stuff. So what I've been doing is just taking sounds in weird ways. Like I just made a piano on MIDI and through the speakers reamped it into this mic and then chopped it up into these crazy sounds and made this like super lo-fi house track or something. And just completely a completely new way of making music from what I normally do. I mean, it's, super lo-fi, there's noise, there's this and that, and you don't have many effects on here, so you just kind of do some weird parameter changes to get like delay and stutters. And it's just mind-blowing to work in such a different way.
Yeah, that's one thing I've been looking at a bit with the new sampling ability I've got, is just resampling and layering things that way. And almost, but it stops you from being able to quantize and do stuff like that. You've got to play it in accurately. It's kind of got to go well, unless you use two and you're alternating between them and you use one as an undo. But even then, it does limit you, and you've got to you're just recording sound and layering sound, and you're not sort of programming something that will make a sound that you'll later record. You kind of skip to the end.
Yeah.
I like the fact it's quite direct, and you either get a result you like straight away or you don't. And it's just a different way of working, making the brain work differently. For me, it's just about the way in.
Yeah.
And until the ball's rolling, until you're in flow, and then you're good until you stop, and it's just trying to get to that state. And I find I can't do it the same way every time.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what I've also found helpful about having this little sound world that you make per project, is that you have that start point now every time. It's kind of like how I was talking, I want to have everything on the new setup plugged in and ready to go. Well, here I don't have to start with the blank project and go, what do I want to make? An ARP? Do I want to make a piano? It's like, well, I have these sounds as my toy box, so to speak, like we're doing with our collab. And I can just go from there. And, I just make something, even if I know I'm not going to keep this first line that I write, it's just a basis to start with, and it's right there. Just making it as streamlined and as easy as possible. But it changes in the fact that for each project, you're using a new sonic world. And I'm spending a couple months designing the sound world for each of the projects. And so a couple months it's not necessarily writing music like you say all the time. Like, it's those sound design sessions where you're just making sounds and oops, a song came out. And then now that song will be the basis of defining the rest of the tracks for the project.
Yeah. See, I mean, I've tried to do that a few times. Not really seriously tried, but I thought, I'm going to build up a load of sounds. I should have a library. I should have an arsenal. Yeah. And every time I've done it, I've just ended up writing a song.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing. And you can still use those sounds again, and just for each, you just tweak them. It's like having patches that you make, and you can just, when you open a project, you go, oh, I need that ARP I've made. You use that. But it's kind of, you're just making some more strict parameters in the fact that, like, I have to use these ones, and then I can make new ones from there, but they all come from the same family of sounds to, like, be consistent.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. And I mean, that's not always a good thing. Sometimes you want the variety of things, but you can do that easily. You just hit a new track. In the chat, it looks like Shady Ridge is agreeing with you for Kindly Spoken Thieves. He says, so true. Hydro Fighter and I are lucky enough to live 50 miles away from each other. Yeah, I mean, I remember working in bands and even like collabing with Curtis and you for this project we're doing right now. But having that extra person when you're stuck on something, you're like, what do you think about this? I'm not vibing with it. And they're like, this is awesome. And they transform it. And now you've got a thing to go off of. Like, just having that two-way street and dialogue makes a massive difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A little bit jealous of the kindly spoken thieves really being able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, 50 miles, I suppose. It's close. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Well, we had talked a long time ago about some new streaming box that you could do like
Low latency.
yeah,
for
low
jump-
latency collabs between
Yeah.
places. I got to look and see how that tech has come along because that still would be something really cool to do for Audionautic or something like that. Do like kind of how we're doing with the Toy Box and Starstream, but
Yeah.
live rather than
I
like
thought
here's some
about it.
stems.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about it a few times. I thought, I mean, yeah, okay, 3,500 miles is always going to be 3,500 miles, and light travels at a certain speed. But and fair enough, there's going to be some latency. But then again, I look at the 25 millisecond latency I've got going through a piece of a kit on my desk in front of me.
Yeah,
I think, well, if I can cope with 25 milliseconds here, surely,
the issue is when it gets to like 500, 700,
Yeah,
1,000.
exactly.
It starts to become a bit of an issue. Like you can compensate for some, but
Yeah.
But I remember them saying it was pretty low, the latency that they had for that streaming box or whatever you want to call it. So who knows? I'll check up on it and we'll see how it's progressed because I think that is something worth looking into. Everyone in the chat, do you have any ways you guys stay fresh in the studio, that you change things up or not change things up? I'm always curious to hear, especially as I, right now in Eon Lake as well, are retooling our setup. It's nice to kind of hear what everyone does and the way they have their setups. I know Hydro Fighter sounds like he's kind of going through a little bit of a setup alteration, let's say.
Yeah, he's doing a bit of an overhaul.
Yeah, and I know he got that new controller. Is that controller the one that you're working on right now, Hydro Fighter? The I forget. Was it like the Jupiter? It looked like the Jupiter JU. It was.
Yeah,
it's
like
cool.
Saint.
Or the R 26, whatever it is. But yeah, I remember he got that cool new piece of gear. But yeah, that's about it for the round robin on my front. You got anything else you want to add?
No, I'd just like to know if other people have the same issues that I do with this, or is it the opposite for some people? I mean, we vary quite a lot. Some people find comfort in ritual and doing things the same way, and it's almost a surefire way of accessing a certain state. And sometimes it's just maybe about spending time playing an instrument. I think sometimes I don't spend enough time actually playing music to try and get into a music headspace. And sitting down at the kit or playing bass or guitar for like half an hour would probably do a lot to get my head into the space rather than sort of, work, home life. Right, be creative now. You've got half an hour. Go.
That reminds me of something Shady Ridge had told us, I think, when we interviewed him for one of the earlier incarnations of Audionautic or Lightspeed. And I remember he said he would like switch instruments to when something, when you're not getting the inspiration. And I've been doing that ever since he said it. When like nothing's clicking on guitar, I switch to bass. When nothing's clicking on that, I switch to synth. When nothing's clicking on that, just like chop something up on the PO or the SP or something, and it's it gets you in that like, oh, I can be creative, that's right. And then maybe something will spring from.
You can waste a lot of time just banging your head against the wall when it's not happening. I mean, accepting that it's not happening and moving on is probably another very good thing to develop, a muscle to develop. Actually realizing this is going nowhere. Right, change the song on your door. Play a different instrument. Change it up.
Just step away. Just take a break. If only I could remember that in those moments.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, sometimes I spent 3 hours banging my head against something, and I'm not going to bin it.
Yeah, that's all too real. That is all too real, man.
You can shortcut it sometimes if you've got the self-awareness.
Yeah, that's quite true. Well, we got a couple minutes left. I just want to quickly talk about a few marketing things. I had planned to discuss a bit about planning singles and whether singles are worth it as a release, just from both anecdotal evidence with Radiant Visage singles and doing that whole waterfall release schedule that I talked about, and the pros and cons of that I'm finding as we approach the final album release. But I think I'm going to save that till next week, because I found an interesting article on CD Baby's blog that talked about like why you should do singles and the foolproof way to release singles, and I want to digest that a little more, talk about it, and then get everybody's, both Curtis, Eon Lake, and everyone in the chat's opinion. So as you watch this, if you want to tune in next week, start thinking perhaps maybe, if you want to participate, what's your release schedule, or do you have plans for release schedules? Do you prefer to just put something out? Do you think about it in the long run and, okay, I'm going to do single album? I'm curious to hear everyone's take on it, because I know everyone's kind of different, and what works for some doesn't work for others. But just really quick, this is a very quick marketing tidbit before we go. That's why I gave that long preamble. But I saw Instagram is now allowing 60-second stories, unbroken. Because previously it was 15 seconds per story, and it would be chopped up, and there would be that like click and a pop before it transitioned, but you could put a full video of 60 seconds, not 60 minutes. I don't know how I feel about that, because I feel like the point of stories is that short attention span. You get 15 seconds and then you can come back later and watch the next one. What do you think?
I don't know. Has it got adverts though, YouTube? I'm thinking of you.
Yeah. Well, stories so far have not, and the Adam Mosseri, the head, IGC, I keep saying CEO, head, Instagram head is what he's titled, keeps saying that stories they're finding are for friends and family. That's who, like, your friends and family will watch your stories, and then the feed, what you scroll on, is supposed to slowly become more and more algorithmic and suggestions, which that's already controversial, and I'm not a fan of that. But I would hope that stories don't get ads, but who knows? I think there are ads in between stories, actually, though. Like, if you finish one person's story, there's usually an ad and then another person's story, but yeah.
I'm just thinking that how is it going to compare to YouTube's offering, and is it going to be less annoying? I'd be inclined to expect it to be.
I think most things would be. Yeah.
YouTube, I hope you watch this.
Yeah, I'm sure they're watching this. But Chad, how do you feel about 60-second stories? I don't know. Me personally, I don't know if I want to watch a story for 60 seconds. So maybe I just have ADD or something. I don't know. But
who has ADD is who's directing these constant changes. I mean,
that's true.
Way. I mean, I think either can work, right? But it's almost like they're not decided on what they're trying to do, and they're forever changing.
I think that's exactly it. They're trying to stay current and compete with TikTok, which I don't think TikTok even has stories. So if I was Instagram, I would be focused on adding new stuff to stories and making stories like its own element, rather than trying to turn stories into like an extension of reels now with minute-long stories and things like that. It just seems like going from 15 seconds to 60 seconds without incrementally changing it is a very drastic change to the format, and could have detrimental effects to how people view stories, so it could change everything for stories. Kind of like how they made those massive sweeping changes to Reels where it was full screen, you swipe down. They did it all so quickly that people were like, what is this? They walked it all back, and now their algorithm's all screwed up because of it. It's like, stop making these drastic changes and focus on incremental change.
Yeah. It makes me wonder what this does for platform fatigue, both for people, who are creating content and people who are just using the platform. It's just, if you annoy people enough, they'll go away.
Yeah.
They'll look at TikTok, they'll look at YouTube,
Yeah. Well, I think that about does it. Thank you for joining us this week. If you want to follow along, hit subscribe. Join us over on Instagram and Twitter. You can join the chat and continue our conversation over on our Patreon group and Twitter. It's patreon.com/audionautic. And with that, we'll see you next week. Ian Lake, any final words?
No, thanks for joining us in the chat. Nice to hear from everybody.
Yeah, always good to see you, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.